Okay, I want to look away from the screen for a while and look at consciousness. And I'm going to try to explain how I understand consciousness and reality working right now. Um, so I'll try to lay out like what model I'm using right now, how I basically see this all working. And this isn't necessarily original, but I also can't tell you exactly where I got it. This is kind of in a everywhere you look, I feel like, has some iteration of this. And just through all the things I've thought about and read and heard over the years, this is, I guess, just my amalgamation. I'm just trying to um, put graphics to my understanding of how consciousness works. So, if we look at the bottom half of this image here, two-step consciousness. This is how animals operate, how a machine operates. This is the mechanistic universe, cause and effect. This is the chain of dominoes. And this is how we operate most of the time. We operate in a two-step consciousness, which is basically, it's a formula. It's an algorithm. And this is a formula. This is an algorithm. Decisions made from the binary machine consciousness are always going to be based on the data and on the past. And it's they're always going to be pursuing resource acquisition. Just very nuts and bolts, avoiding harm, seeking pleasure, and resource acquisition based on what has worked for you in the past or what you have seen work for other people. So, you know how to make money. You know what you can do for work, for a job. And usually when you're at work, you're on automatic. You're like a robot. You're not thinking consciously, making decisions, choices every moment. You know how to work. You know how to make money. You don't consciously do it. You just flip on that algorithm. When it's time to relax, you don't ponder deeply about you already know how you like to relax. Whether you like to crack a beer or turn on the TV, lay on the couch, but you know how you like to relax. So when it's time to relax, you just flip on that relaxation algorithm and you run that algorithm. You're operating automatically. When you want to party, which I haven't done for years, but you know how you like to party. It doesn't take any great contemplation or meditation. You just turn on, you know how you like to party. You turn on your party algorithm. You just flip that switch. And this is binary consciousness. This is how animals act. This is how the environment acts. Everything other than human beings. We have available to us a three-step consciousness system in which we are consciously choosing. And when we're making a conscious choice, we're present in present awareness. We are transcending the time dimension. Okay? This is the two-step consciousness is the loop. Okay? Because since you're basing since your decisions are being made by an algorithm, it's automatic. So your computer, your mind, observes the data set, which is everything you're perceiving in the moment. It takes a snapshot of that data set, and then it identifies the components. It says, this is a dog, this is a danger, this is a resource. It identifies them, and based on that data set, the next action is determined automatically based on the past, just the same way that machine learning works and AI works. It's automatic. You see a coin, you pick it up. You see a dog growl, you turn the other way. It's just boom, boom, boom. And this is how we get stuck in loops. When we get stuck in this algorithm, this two-step consciousness, and we get stuck in a loop, and it keeps moving faster and faster, and it gets harder and harder for us to interject a conscious choice into our routine, our thought routine. Now, the first step, observe, could also be called record. And the way to understand this is, if we take a snapshot of your consciousness at any random moment in time, we pick a random moment in your life and we freeze frame, one frame. And if we could somehow take a snapshot of your entire consciousness, your entire being, your thought matrix, everything you're sensing in that moment, that is the data set in one moment. And what we do is, the first step is, this information, data that we're receiving into our processor, we transpose it inside ourselves into our virtual environment that we create. We never interact with an outside world directly. Okay, all our experience is within a virtual environment, which is our mind. So when we transpose that data set of everything we're perceiving in that moment, we record it into ourselves, into our virtual environment. The next step is identify. We then we could also call this interpret. We then interpret that data set. And like I said, that triggers an action automatically in a machine, in an animal. There's no choice. As soon as we identify the components of the data set, the action is determined automatically. And the action changes the data set. The action could be anything in this simplest model of consciousness. It could be your next thought. It could be to look at something, to change the direction of your eyes. It could be to listen to something. It could be to take a step forward, take a step back, pick something up off the ground, shield your face suddenly, hold your hands up. Whatever it is, it occurs automatically, and that action produces a change in the data set, and the cycle repeats. So now we have a new data set that we record, transpose into our virtual environment. We interpret it, and that triggers another automatic action. So you can see how, when you're operating in this binary two-step consciousness in the bottom half here, you can get stuck in a loop of automatic action. No awareness, no choice. Now, we look at the top half of the image. True human consciousness, true organic, analog human consciousness, is a three-step process, three-step consciousness. We could also call it trinary, as opposed to binary or the Trinity. And this is where the divine aspect, the inexpressible divine aspect, enters into humanity. This is free will, this human choice, which occurs outside of the time dimension, outside of the screen, outside of the matrix. And as opposed to the machine binary consciousness, human choice is not based on the data set. It is not based on the current data set. So it starts the same first two steps, where we observe, or we could say record, the data set. The second step, identify, or we could call it interpret, the components of the data set. What does it mean? But rather than that triggering an automatic action, an algorithm, a machine response, a mechanistic response, instead we can have a choice. We can make a choice that's completely independent from the data set. And what I mean by that is, it's not like a cost-benefit analysis. The choice is not necessarily going to be seeking pleasure, avoiding pain, avoiding harm, or resource acquisition. It's not necessarily going to be advantageous from the line of dominoes, causal chain perspective, resource-wise, ego-wise. We can make decisions that do not benefit our machine. Human beings can make choices contrary to the data set, and that they're contrary to their machine or animal self-interest, or if not contrary, at least not advancing their material self-interest. Machines are incapable of this, because it's illogical, it's inexpressible, it's unexplainable how this happens, and why you would make this choice when seemingly it's not represented in the data set. It doesn't proceed strictly from the data set that you're observing. One example I'm thinking of this is if you save a child from being hit by a car, or you save someone from being hit by a car. It could happen in a split second, and you don't have time inside the time dimension to say, okay, this is the speed of the car. They're not aware enough to get themselves out of the way. I should help them, but I could be hit. What are the chances I could be hit? You don't go through any of that. It happens. To an outside observer, it seems to happen instantaneously, automatically, like I would say binary consciousness. But that is impossible, because it's contrary to your machine self-interest. Like an animal is never going to jump in front of a car. That's what makes a human, is that even though you're not consciously aware of it, you have other inputs other than the mechanistic world data set, the 3D world data set. Even though you're not aware of it, there's some other information input that's causing you to jump out in front of that car to save a kid. Or a lot of times people will jump to help someone on a ladder before the other person falls from the ladder. Like premonitory action, premonition action, like before it happens. Or you might have a feeling to call someone. You call someone and because you get a bad feeling. You just have a feeling that you should call them. And I would always encourage you to make that choice. Because when you have that feeling, I should really call this person. I feel like I'm thinking of them for some reason. They might need my help or whatever. You can go either way. You can opt for the binary consciousness. No, I'm not going to call them. There's no information in the data set to support that. So just automatic. No, I'm not going to call them. Or you could say, No, I'm more than the data set. I have some aspect of me that it has access to a higher dimension outside of this time dimension. You see, we have these other data sets entering in that we're not aware of in our subconscious. You could also say, like, saving the child from the car. It's not supported in your mechanistic thought process, but it must have. It comes from a higher command line, a higher control system than thought, which we're not aware of, which is like your will, refining your will. That's like setting your compass needle. So your thoughts are all the zigs and zags you take in the road. I got to make a right turn here, go around. But your will is like, I'm heading north. No matter what little bumps, turns, hills and valleys, you're setting your direction consciously. I'm going to help people. I'm going to save people, etc. This is also, number one, how you know you're not the body, because of these other data inputs that are not coming directly from the environment, and also occur outside of time, outside of the causal chain in this dimension. So, because we have access to information subconsciously outside of time, that's another reason why I say we are projecting ourselves into this environment, but our primary consciousness has to be in a higher dimension in order to make choices independent of the data set in the 3D realm within this dimension. So when we're operating the 3-step awareness, 3-step consciousness, we're operating at a higher, you could say we're operating at a higher level of awareness, but really that it's our natural, organic mode of consciousness. This is why people say God works through people. This is this divine interjection that is really inconceivable what human choice is. And we're all gonna operate in the binary automatic consciousness some of the time or a lot of the time, but our goal should be to operate in the 3-step consciousness as much as possible, to make choice, to choose, make a conscious choice, make as many choices as possible. Because when you're operating in the binary mechanistic consciousness, basically you're operating the way the environment operates, the way the animals, machines, the machine of our creation, our environment operates, because your actions are just a direct result of the data set coming in from the environment. So basically you are part of the environment while you're operating in this binary consciousness. That's why I say we're all NPCs sometimes. We're all acting out the script sometimes. Because this is how the script, Satan, the AI system, whatever you want to call it, operates through people, through the reality canals. You see, it shapes their actions through the banks of circumstance. Because if you're operating binary, mechanistic, you will be perfectly controlled by the environment. So we're all going to lapse into this, but our goal needs to be to always make a choice, always come back, remember ourselves, and make choice, conscious decision, and operate in 3-step consciousness. And the more and more we operate consciously in 3-step consciousness, trinary consciousness, and consciously make choices our awareness will grow the more time we spend aware and consciously choosing. And I'm a proponent of choosing, making more choices. Think of, direct your thought. It can be a little thing. Oh, I want to read a book. I'm going to draw a picture. I do call that person that you think you might need to call. It's like building a house. Like, I'm a big proponent of choosing in the affirmative. Like you can always walk out of a house that you get tired of or claustrophobic, or it's a beautiful day out. You want to walk outside of your house, but you can't when there's a storm, a blizzard, or you're tired or it's hot. You can't walk into a house that you've never built. Okay, you can always walk away from a house you built. This is why me personally, I'm like a compulsive skill learner. I don't think it's a bad thing. Not where like I buy things like, oh, I'm gonna work out now, and I spend $1,000 on workout gear. Not like that, but like every year or so, for a time, like a couple months, I'll get really obsessed with a new skill. I'll decide I want to learn a new skill. Even though I'm older now, I'm 32, I think, 31. But I'll still, and I never become an expert at these things, but I don't completely forget them either. I'll spend a time like really obsessed with something, like electronics or playing guitar or something like that. And I'll get myself to a level of proficiency basically to do whatever I wanted to do, whatever my goal, my project was. But I never leave them completely either. Like I'm always building up this repertoire of more skills, which somehow I know will be useful to me in the future, together in some way. I also do this, like to learn skills, because I find this is where epiphanies come from for me. Not necessarily from delving super deep into one very specialized subject, but when you learn completely different fields and you see the similarity in the pattern and the architecture, and that's where you see the connections in really disparate fields. When you see that similarity, that's how you know intuitively that it's actually a pattern of reality itself that manifests in subtle ways through all these different fields, all these different data sets. So, and like I said, the more time we spend consciously choosing, the more time we spend in the three-step consciousness, when we're operating in the three-step consciousness, we're growing our awareness. The more we're consciously choosing, the finer our awareness becomes. Okay? I want you to think about this word conceive. Conceive. And look at this last definition. To apprehend by reason or imagination. To apprehend, to catch. To catch, to form a conception of. You conceive of a concept. So if you think of a concept rather than an abstraction as like a physical object, okay, and you think of your mind as a sieve, conceive means to create, to make a sieve. Like construct, to create a structure. I don't care what they say it means. This is what I say it means. Construct, to create a structure. Conceive, to create a sieve. You know, to catch things, to create a sieve, to catch concepts. The Decepticons, to create deception. I want to get more into the Transformers too. There's tons of stuff here, like Megatron, It's just like, it reminds me of Metatron, the moon, dark side of the moon. They're on the moon. He's called the Fallen, the Primes. We'll get into that someday. So if you think of your mind as a sieve or a colander or a net, spending time in this 3-step consciousness is like, if it's a net, it's like sewing the net. Okay? Like inner work. When we're doing inner work, as like people call it, like your like meditation, prayer, yoga, exercise for you, hiking, or quiet contemplation. You can imagine that when you're doing this inner work, it's like you're sewing the net of your mind. And just like sheets, the higher thread count, the more valuable they are. The finer they are, the finer concepts you can catch, hold in your mind. So, if you have big problems in your consciousness pattern, like you're addicted to crack, you're cutting yourself, severe memory loss, violent, whatever. We could think of these as like huge holes in your net. Imagine like a butterfly net. And you can't hold anything other than the grossest sense pleasure concepts. You can't hold any of these more subtle concepts. They go right through the big holes in your net. So this inner work, these conscious choices, 3-step true organic consciousness, we could think of like getting healthier, getting off drugs. If you have a really destructive habit, you're really unhealthy, addressing those things, getting off drugs, starting to eat right, whatever, these can be like, this would be like sewing up the giant holes in your net, okay? Just to get the net in one piece. Then next, we start to sew up all the little holes in our net, okay? And as we do this, continue to sew up all the big holes and then the little holes, you can imagine you're able to hold finer and finer, more subtle concepts in your mind. You're able to conceive, sieve them out of the reality, hold them, the concept in your mind. So you address your major problems, that's the big holes. Then maybe, okay, I'm not on crack anymore. Now I'm going to eat organic. Now I lost the weight. Now I'm going to start building muscle. Okay, now I'm going to start I want to read the Bible 20 minutes every day. I want to meditate 20 minutes every day. And this is like you're sewing up the small holes now. You're doing finer sewing, finer work. And you can imagine as this continues and continues doing this inner work, making these conscious choices, you can sew a finer and a finer net, and you're able to conceive, to hold in your mind subtler and subtler concepts. The more inner work you do, the more sewing of your net, the more subtle, finer concepts you can conceive of. I also just want to say I can't let this go. I disagree completely with this second definition. To cause, to begin, originate. These people are just retarded. I don't know if they do these things on purpose. This is like Webster's dictionary, but this is just incorrect. A project conceived by the company's founder, like as in to become pregnant with, to cause, to begin. No, that's not. A project conceived of by the company's founder. A project conceived of by the company's founder. No one says a project conceived by the company's founder, like a baby. That's retarded. Anyway, sorry, that was a real tangent. And for me, I extrapolate some numerological symbology from the juxtaposition of these two modes of operation, these two modes of consciousness, which takes precedence. So which is your primary mode of operation and which is your subordinate, your secondary? Which are you primarily operating from? If you're primarily operating from the 3-step consciousness, that's 3/2. Okay, because you're always still running your binary consciousness as well. Your breathing, everything, down to the most basic levels. Your machine is running itself automatically as part of the environment. Or do you put this binary mode of consciousness above the organic consciousness? It's like whenever you hear someone say, I'm just doing my job. Hey, why are you doing that, man? It's not right to do that. You're doing something. You're doing a bad thing. Cruel. Hey, I'm just doing my job. What they're saying is they're telling you that they're 2/3. They're saying, hey, I'm just operating as a machine. Hey, I'm just following an algorithm. Hey, I'm just doing my job. Or someone says, well, I don't have any choice. Oh my God, you beat that guy up? Well, what? I didn't have any choice. He slapped my girlfriend's ass. You always have a choice. You always have a choice. It just depends on your will, your intention, the effort, energy you're willing to expend. Which mode of consciousness takes precedence for you? So I see the organic primary consciousness as 3/2, which is 1.5. I view this as a 5-5-5. Okay, and there's more. 5 is the third prime number. And this is, I'm not sure what the name for it is, but like a natural number. It's, it terminates at a specific point. We know exactly what it is. 5-5-5, 1.5, 15. This number represents Earth, humanity, human organic consciousness, which is Earth. That is what Earth is human consciousness. Like these people that are like, oh, I wish humans would go extinct and the Earth would be beautiful. The Earth would be so much better off without us. No, there would be no Earth. Okay? Animals are part of the environment. Our bodies are part of the environment. That's not Earth. It wouldn't exist without human consciousness. What Earth is human consciousness. It's the activity of human life in this virtual environment. Now, the binary, the machine, the digital consciousness, primary digital, as opposed to primary organic, primary mechanical is 2/3. Your 2-step consciousness takes precedence over your 3-step consciousness. Now that you always are operating from both, but when you're operating as a machine, it's subverted, it's subordinate. You're not choosing. You're not making conscious choices. But it is still running, subordinate. And a human being always has the possibility of taking conscious control of his experience again and making a choice and breaking the loop of mechanical consciousness. And 2/3 is 0.666, and it continues indefinitely. the sixes go on forever. So unlike the 555, the 1.5, the 15, which terminates at a specific spot, the 666 is the spiral. It never terminates. It continues forever. This is the infinite rabbit holes. And this represents the material world, the data itself. This represents the environment. And it represents environment consciousness, machine consciousness, just pure causal chain of dominoes, resource power acquisition, just animal, mechanistic, the material world, the nuts and bolts. That's what 666 represents. 555 represents humanity, human consciousness. 666 represents machine consciousness. And when I look at things with numbers, and I derive meaning from these numbers I see in the data set, all this basically means is that people who don't believe in this sort of thing, they only believe in nuts and bolts, mechanistic consciousness. They believe there is an objective interpretation of the data set, of reality. Like you might think different things, but there's a nuts and bolts, there's a hard reality out there, objective, regardless of the observer. It exists independent of the observer. As opposed to the belief which I hold that in addition to having a consensus meaning, a consensus interpretation of reality, I believe that there is also an equally valid subjective interpretation of reality. So while there is a consensus reality, a consensus screen, objective reality that the screen shows to everyone, it also has a subjective meaning which is individual to each person, each consciousness. So it's showing you two messages at once. And this is why I don't think there's a set rule, law of the symbology of numbers. I think that's something you have to work out for yourself, because it really is a subjective message, meaning from the data set. Just like reading tea leaves or coffee grinds in the bottom of your cup, or seeing something in the clouds, seeing these numbers, doing a tarot reading, and believing that it's through the random mechanistic reality canals, a subjective interpretation encoded just for you will always be there. This is a belief that this is just the nature of reality, that it is subjective as well as objective. And I just want to show this article you may have seen already illustrating this. Now it's talking about a new technology they've rolled out at the Detroit Metro Airport. I'm telling you, this is not to make travel easier. This isn't a business decision. This, at least to me, this is just a disclosure of technology and of the nature of reality. That's what this is. They're just trying to ease people into this new understanding of reality. And people don't want to change. Many people are locked in the loop of mechanical consciousness. But in this alembic, this alchemical chamber we're in, being refined or growing or changed, that they're going to have to come to terms, begin to conceive finer concepts of reality. So the reality is guiding them to that. Delta to debut technology at Detroit Metro Airport that customizes info for passengers. They call it parallel reality technology. Metro Airport would be the first airport with this display. Okay. Delta Airlines plans to debut its parallel reality technology at Detroit Metropolitan Airport, allowing patrons to see customized travel messages simultaneously on a single screen. Atlanta-based, 33rd parallel. The screen will allow nearly 100 customers at the same time to view personalized content, such as directions to gates and departure times. The same screen will look different depending on who is looking at it. A mind-bending innovation that allows 100 or more viewers to simultaneously share a digital display, sign, or light, and each see something different. This is the screen. You understand? This is how the screen works. And like I said, all our technology is natural technology. We don't invent anything. We discover it. Like levers and pulleys. All these things. So someone has learned how to do this from nature, from reality itself. Eventually, parallel reality technology can be used to create seamless, engaging, and personalized experiences in nearly any out-of-home venue, ranging from stadiums to theme parks to convention centers and more. So they're saying there's no limit to the scale. Think about this. Think about a stadium, a convention center, a theme park, where a screen is showing everyone something different. The possibilities are endless. The technology is enabled by a display of multi-view pixels and proprietary technology that change the content of the screen based on the angle of the viewer. The possibilities are endless for integrating information into the parallel reality experience. The possibilities really are endless. Think about this. Think about putting one of these up in the sky. Oh, wait. But the thing is, guys, it really is, it's time to abandon the nuts and bolts conception of reality. We need to grow our awareness and start conceiving of these more subtle understandings, concepts of reality. When you combine this type of technology with the cloaking stuff, with memory implants, this is real. You can go observe this. You can go to this airport and observe this. But the memory implants in mice, the parallel reality, the augmented reality, I'm gonna do a video showing stuff from the movie Brainstorm, which is absolutely not just a movie, 100%. It's a true story, a disclosure. This consciousness recording and projecting tech, when you start combining these, you have to consider strongly what I'm saying about consistency being violated and the subjective nature of reality. And this being a virtual environment. Do you see what I see? Just a random picture real quick. Walking by, I saw this last night outside. And that looks like Twin Pines to me. Does that look like Twin Pines to you guys? It's even got the little T there. TPs. Traders, Manufacturer, and Traders Trust. What do you think? Are those Twin Pines or what? Or is that a GG66? Or is it the same difference? Just another random clip I just happen to have here. I fucking love this guy. Can't tell you who he is, but I'll say he's a real role model of mine. Shit is hilarious. Love this man. Listen to this.
Hi. I don't like people to know where I live or what I'm about. Therefore, I wear this mask when I'm in public, and I wore it well before the coronavirus thing started.
That shit had me dying. So fucking funny. Okay, so the 555 dimension realm is the realm of Earth, human life, human consciousness. And when we look out on our own dimension, we can know it approximately. We can predict it approximately, but it can never be known completely, exactly. Like I've talked about in the past, trying to measure something. Oh, it's 1.1 inches. Yeah, but I need to know exactly. Okay, well, it's 1.27. No, I mean, I need to know exactly. Okay, it's 1.2756458 inches. No. I need to know exactly. Okay, so we can't measure it exactly. It's always going to be approximate in an organic environment. That's what we see when we're looking out within our own dimension. Looking down dimensionally can be known completely to us. And this represents matter, our body. And it can be known completely. As in looking down dimensionally on a computer, it can be known completely. We can transpose the entire data set exactly of ones and zeros. It can be measured exactly looking down dimensionally. So anything below you dimensionally can be known completely. Anything above you looking up dimensionally can only be known through analogy. Okay? We can't have any direct experience looking upwards, but we can extrapolate by going down. So this is why we make virtual environments, computers, simulations. It's a simplification of our dimension. There's always less information. That's what makes a virtual environment, a simulation, useful. Is we can capture the nature of something, but we can reduce the data set. So it's easier for us to understand. And as we continue to tunnel down dimensionally, less and less information, more and more simplified, we gain an understanding of our own dimension by seeing the relationships between our own and lower dimensions, virtual environments. And we can extrapolate this to above also, in the way that a virtual environment below us dimensionally is simplified, less information, less possibility, less choice. We can extrapolate that our realm is a simplification, a simulation, less information than the realms above us. And this doesn't represent three specific dimensions necessarily. It's more relative, directionally. Up is always going to be more subtle. 777 just means looking up, energy-wise. Looking down, matter. 666, always more gross, looking down. And 555, what we can know approximately, organic environment, is wherever you are currently. You could move up or down dimensionally into subtler or grosser levels of existence, and you're always going to have a more subtle layer above you and a more gross layer below you. And obviously 777 represents divinity. 7 is the fourth prime. 7 and 4, 11, 77, 777. These things are all encoded in each other, looping back, interconnected. And there's really only 9 numbers. 0 isn't a number, it's the whole. As far as symbolism, the character of the numbers themselves, there's only 9, 1 through 9. And as we proliferate beyond that, the way we reduce things in numerology or gematria or what have you, it's always going to have the personality, the quality of a single number between 1 and 9. And I can't tell you all the reasons exactly why, but 7 represents divinity. And the threefold is this trinary nature. It's just like an emphasis. The quintessential, the ultimate energy, 777, up, 666, down, okay? One of the reasons 7 represents up, perfection, divinity is, I'll get into this in a later video because I don't have an image made up for it yet, but 7 is like a fully contained number. There's relationships between 7, 3, and 9, and basically the fractions, the divisions of 7 are a string of numbers that are a perfect cycle. I believe it's 1, 4, 2, 8, 5, 7. Give me 1 second. Okay, and real quickly, when we break down the fractions of 7, they're encoded in this perfect cyclical string of numbers. The fraction 1/7 is this number, 0.142857. 2/7, we just start at a different point and you run the cycle and it always works. So 2/7 is you start at the 2 and it's 2, 8, 5, 7, 1, 4. Okay, 3/7, we start at the 4. 3/7 is 0.428571. 4/7, we start from the 5. It's 0.571428. 5/7 is 0.714285. 6/7 is 0.857142. So there's a perfect cycle, a completion encoded in this number. And in the future, I'm going to do, I want to get into this 7 and 8 minutes, this cycles, this 7 cycle. Every 7 years, every cell in your body is replaced. It takes sunlight 8 minutes, 7, 8 minutes to reach the earth, supposedly. 7 days in a week. The Jubilees in the Bible, we have all these 7 cycles. Represents completion or wholeness. So the 666 is the pure matter, the machine, the technology that enables our experience. It's the environment. 666 is the material, and it's contained in like an alembic, a sealed, hermetically sealed container, and the matter never actually leaves, never actually goes anywhere. What happens is we have pure matter, and then we have pure energy, consciousness, intention. And what we see as reality, human life, is actually the interaction of this pure energy and pure matter. So it's like what we see as reality as humans is actually the energy moving through the matter. Like how waves pass through water, but the water doesn't move. But we perceive this wave, which doesn't actually exist in the pure data set. Okay? It only exists in the abstraction. This is where we derive meaning from the pattern. We can't observe the energy directly. Okay, we can only know it by analogy. We can't observe the higher dimensions. We can only see it circumstantially. We see its action on the matter. So that's what the human realm is. 555 is the interaction of these two, like watching a wave move through water. So nothing ever leaves the container. That it's nothing's created or destroyed. It's just rearranged. It's just waves and patterns going through the matter. This is like if you could click up one level, like where one God breath is 1,000 years. If you could click up one level to giant super Earth, and you look down at us, at humans on regular small Earth, from super Earth, when you look at us, we just look like little dust devils, little tornadoes that are rising up, spinning around, dancing out of the dirt and falling back into the dirt. And like we eat food, our food comes out of the dirt. If you could follow every particle of a baby developing in the womb, what you would actually see, if you could follow the path of each particle, is you would see all these particles coming up out of the ground and accumulating in a woman. They accumulate, and they assemble themselves out of the ground, actually, if you could see it like this, because this is where our food comes from. We come out of the dust, out of the ground. So if you click up one level to super Earth, where each breath is 1,000 years, humanity just looks like all these little dust devils coming up and falling back into the dirt, up and down, up and into the dirt, and swirling around the alembic. So, like if we go back to this one, when I say observed outside of time, okay, this is the human consciousness. When we take a snapshot of the observed, when we record the data, the machine mind, we have the data set, but the meaning is lost. The movement is lost. When we're operating in the organic consciousness, like I said, we're operating outside of time. We're projecting from a higher dimension, and the data is lost, but we derive meaning. So we can derive exact data from our machine side, but lose the meaning, or we can derive the meaning and the exact data will be lost when we're operating from organic consciousness. So looking up is analog. Looking down is digital. And when I said going down dimensionally is always a simplification, always a loss of information. Imagine you're sitting in your house, and whatever perceptions you're having, you have this data set of anything that could occur in this environment in your house. Now you sit down at the computer. Okay, you're even without opening a program, you're just sitting looking at the computer. You're already tunneling down dimensionally. You're already in a virtual environment, a digital environment, because now the data set is simplified to what can happen on that screen. There's a finite number of pixels that can express a finite number of ways, and there's a finite amount of possible expressions of the screen. So it's simplified from your organic environment. Now imagine you open Minecraft up on the computer. Now it's further simplified. The possibilities are constricted again, because the screen is only going to display things that occur in Minecraft. Like all the configurations of pixels that you would see in a Word document or playing StarCraft or watching a movie are not going to occur. Only Minecraft arrangements of pixels are going to occur. So it's a further tunneling down, another virtual environment, further simplification. And in this way, we can learn more. So we need to do both. Look down and up to understand up. Like the Guided by Voices song. As we go up, we go down. So you open Minecraft, it's further simplified. Now you go into a mod, a little game in Minecraft, where it's like knife fight. Now it's further simplified. Okay, understand? So the further you tunnel down dimensionally, the more simplified it becomes, the less information is in the set. And this is why I say analog devices are magic. They can't be defined exactly. They proceed from the organic laws of nature, of the universe. Take a delay pedal or a reverb, an analog and a digital delay pedal. If you play a tone into a digital delay pedal, like you pluck a guitar note, it's going to be, well, say a keyboard, because then the input will be exactly the same every time. So say you play a keyboard note into a digital delay, and it and it'll be exactly the same every time. You can enter that same input into the digital delay a million times, and you'll get the same result a million times. But an analog delay or reverb, if you enter that same input into it, you're going to get a slightly different result every time, because it's not operating in a virtual environment. It's actually operating in the organic environment. It proceeds from a higher dimension, the analog forces. In that way, it's never completely predictable. It's always going to be within a range. The result, the sound you get out of that input is always going to be a little different. And the reason I say they're magic is because really anything could happen. That it could emit a cloud of purple fog and levitate 3 feet off the ground. It could cause your house to explode. It could heat up into a ball of white light. Now, have I ever seen that happen? No, because it's extremely, extremely, extremely improbable. It's in the possible outputs from the input, it's an extreme outlier. But the point is, just because we haven't observed it, we can't say it's not possible. Because due to the fluctuations in our inability to define values exactly in analog forces, there's always that very small possibility of a radical outlier. So I like analog devices. You never know what's going to happen. With a digital device, you always know exactly what's going to happen. And you could say, well, I don't know everything that's on the computer. I go on Facebook and I'm blocked from all these pages. I can't go on the CIA's. Yes, but someone knows it completely. Okay? That just means that you are not the creator of the virtual environment. If you create in a virtual environment, you will know it completely. Okay? And that virtual environment that you don't know completely, it can be known completely. It's possible to transpose all the binary code. You understand? And I was thinking of these layers as air, oil, and water. Water being the matter itself, the material realm. Imagine a glass of water. You pour oil in, and the oil floats on top of the water. And the air, even though it is in the cup as well, it's another liquid actually, floating above the oil. So we have this suspension between the very subtle, the very rare energy, and the very dense matter, gross matter. And the further we proceed up into higher awareness, choice, organic consciousness, the more experience is possible to us, because we're getting more inputs from outside of the dimension. And things become more and more improbable. The further we look down, travel down, the more predictable things become. And that's not what we want, because we all see how things are working here mechanistically. We don't want things to proceed predictably, or they will come to a predictably bad end. This is why we need to do inner work, raise our awareness, and we're sending out these intentions, our thoughts. It's important to know what's wrong and that something's wrong with our system, but that doesn't change it. In order to change it, we need to conceive of a different reality. We need to spend more of our time in the 3-step awareness, and we need to build the reality we want. An unpredictable reality, more experience, more information. And this is the heart of human consciousness, is this improbability, how you can act independent from the data set, independent from your machine, outside of the time dimension, in your subconscious, beyond your normal awareness of your processing layer. You have other inputs coming from higher dimensions, which are informing your will, your intention differently than the environment would form it mechanistically. So I want to show a short clip from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That's a big truth drop. The ship, the heart of gold, the core of it is the infinite improbability drive. That's the human heart.
Top story. The sensational theft of the most coveted ship in the universe, the Starship Heart of Gold.
And if we look at the ship, it's called the Heart of Gold. We can see number 1, it's the moon. It's another Death Star reference, but it almost looks as if, like a flat Earth model or something. The Earth like embedded in the moon. The Earth embedded, smashed into the moon. The Earth is within the moon. The 555 human experience within the 666 realm, the container.
Though the planet Earth, the Islington flat, and telephone have all now been demolished the infinite improbability drive is a wonderful new method of crossing interstellar distances in a few seconds, without all that tedious mucking about in hyperspace. As the improbability drive reaches infinite improbability, it passes through every conceivable point in every conceivable universe almost simultaneously. In other words, you're never sure where you'll end up or even what species you'll be when you get there. It's there.
Okay, so the heart of a human consciousness is the improbability drive. Your ability to be unpredictable, to make this choice, this indefinable, inexplicable human choice, independent from the data set. Okay, I'm going to stop it there for now, but I got a lot of videos in the works. I've been doing tons of research, and I got tons of material collected and stuff I've been working on. I want to continue with this, the 555, 666, and 777. So I may do more. I have like multiple videos, and I'm not sure which to do first. I'm trying to lay this out because they all kind of fit together, and they all kind of need one another to explain each other. But yeah, I'm gonna try and focus inward on humanity, human consciousness a little more. This is how I found how my system of understanding reality the best way is. Like we look down to understand up, we look out at the screen, and then we see how it applies to us, and we look in. Then we see something in our mind or in our consciousness, and then we see it reflected out in the world, and we look back and forth to get a better understanding of the whole, to better understand both inside and outside the screen. It's like you can imagine like turning a wheel, like cranking a crank. You have to push halfway down, but if you just keep pushing, it'll stop there. Then you have to reverse your movement, pull it up to complete the cycle. Then you got to push it down again, then pull. We look out, we look in, we look up, we look down. One more thing I wanted to say. This is intuitive without the brainwashing, the mind control, that there is an objective up and down. Like I said, air, oil, and water, virtual environments, organic environments, that we would, if we weren't so programmed, we would recognize this intuitively. Because it's in everything. It's the way everything works, the fractal nature of reality. We see the water below the air, below the lighter gas, and it's the first thing a baby learns is balance, their internal level. They learn to balance, push up, stand up, walk up and down. That's the first, most basic thing you learn, is the 3D XYZ axis, movement, physicality. And the programming cuts right to the root of that. And they say, well, really, there is no such thing as up and down. So you can't believe anything that's obvious or intuitive to you about reality. Because actually, there is no up and down. It seems like that, but in space, it's all relative. You could be upside down here, right side up there, and it's an illusion. No. We believe in up and down. That's logical. That's human consciousness. That's organic, and it's the obvious order of things. We believe in up and down.